Continuing from the previous episode, Loki escapes from TVA and goes to catch up with the variant. But before telling the journey of the two of them, we are shown with a flashback scene of two women. They are the TVA agent of the Minuteman commander named C-20 and also variant Loki aka Lady Loki. The variant is asking how many troops are actually guarding the timekeepers. Haven't had time to answer, the place suddenly changed. The variant questioned again how many troops were guarding the timekeepers on TVA. But C-20 began to realize that she didn't know who the woman who asked her to talk was. Apparently this scene happened when Loki and the TVA agent were chasing the variant. She seized the opportunity to dig up information about the timekeepers from within C-20's mind. Then the story continues, the variant apparently heading to the TVA headquarters, she tries to touch the head of Minuteman who is there to control her thoughts. But it was futile because inside this TVA, as we know, magic power cannot be used. By being forced to fight all the Minutemans who were there. And this is not a big deal for her. While Loki caught up with her all the way inside the TVA headquarters as well, he carried his gun just in case. Loki then meets the variant who has arrived in front of the golden elevator door, the place where the timekeepers are located. This information she got from C-20 when the variant once entered her mind. Loki then offered to cooperate, but the variant refused. When they fight, come Ravonna and her army to stop them. Just as Ravonna wanted to eliminate them, Loki quickly started an engine called Temped and took the two of them to escape from there. The two then scrambled for the tool and the variant got it. But unfortunately, the tool ran out of power and made the variant fail to escape. The two argued, and as Loki called Loki to the variant, she didn't like the call. As the two argued, there suddenly a meteor fell, leaving the variant confused as to where Loki was taking the two of them to escape. It turns out that they are both in a location called Lamentis-1 in 2077. The variant said of all the places where there is an apocalypse in it, Lamentis-1 this is the worst. There is no way for them to escape from there. Lamentis-1 is a moon that is immediately hit by the nearest planet there. Therefore, many meteors are falling, and although TVA would not have expected this location. But this place is very dangerous. The two then ran over and walked into a fairly sheltered room. The variant wanted to control Loki's mind. But Loki's mind is so strong that her magic spells are useless. Then they will fight once again, but this time the two later reconcile. Loki mastered Temped, while the variant knew how to recharge the device. So in any case, to be able to leave here, the two must work together. The variant then said the plan to attack the timekeepers had been prepared for years. But it's a pity that Loki messed it up instead. Once they can turn on the Temped, then the variant intends to go straight back to TVA to continue its plans. The two then went from there to find the nearest town, so that they could charge from the device called Temped. Along the way, Loki calls the variant with variant. But the woman did not like it. Meanwhile, if she called by the name Loki, she also doesn't like it. This makes the real Loki confused, and the variant asks to call herself by the name Sylvie. Finally the two came to the city. The city looked very bad and also messy. While Sylvie said they only had 12 hours until the planetary collision event occurred. The two then found a house with residents inside. Sylvie went straight in, but she was shot to the point of being thrown by the woman from inside the house. Meanwhile, Loki disguised himself as the husband of the old lady. But still his movements were read and he was shot as well until he was thrown. Sylvie then asks, "Where is everyone in this city?" The woman then replied, Everyone was at the train station preparing to head to the evacuation plane. But he added that Loki as well as Sylvie would not get a pass to the train. Nevertheless, they still headed there in the hope that on board the plane there was a device to charge. Without waiting for a long time, the two had already arrived at the departure location. There was a long line of people who wanted to enter, but were prevented by the guards. Only the nobility and the wealthy were allowed to enter the evacuation train. Loki then had an idea. He disguised himself as a guard and seemed to be catching Sylvie. Sylvie also controlled the minds of the guards who were there, and in this way, the two were finally able to enter without needing a ticket. After going inside, Sylvie began to ask where Loki's magic power came from. Loki then replied, all of that was taught by his mother. The two then told about their respective lives. The two turned out to be both adopted children. But the difference is that Sylvie doesn't know what her mother figure looks like. Loki also questioned Sylvie where her mind control power came from, and it turned out that Sylvie learned it by herself. Meanwhile, outside the meteors are falling more and more, and there is one that is quite large in size. Sylvie, who was resting, then woke up because Loki sang with the passengers of the train. Sylvie was furious that Loki no longer used his disguise, and Sylvie's worries became a reality. There was someone reporting to the train attendant and they asked where the ticket was. Of course Loki didn't have a ticket and the two were forced to fight the train guards. Loki is thrown by officers out of the train and Sylvie is forced to give up following him, knowing it was Loki who was carrying Temped, the only tool to survive from there. After surviving the train, Sylvie immediately asked for the Temped that Loki had hidden. But unfortunately the tool was damaged because Loki fell quite hard. Sylvie gets even angrier because of all this of Loki's drunken deeds in the train and messing up the mission. The peak of Sylvie's anger is seen as she screams loudly for feeling so upset. Finally Loki approached Sylvie, who was sitting pensively, and worked out a plan. Sylvie knew very well the events of this apocalypse that occurred in Lamentus-1, where the evacuation plane they were going to would be destroyed and there was no chance for anyone to escape. But Loki plans to hijack the plane and change the destiny where they can escape from there. The two then agreed and began to walk towards the evacuation ship. Halfway through, Sylvie explains how her powers work, where she can control the thoughts of others with direct physical contact. And plus the shadows from their past, for people whose minds are chaotic and weak, it will be very easy to control. It is different from people who have a strong mind. Therefore, Sylvie can take memories of hundreds of years ago from the C-20-time policeman she manipulated to dig up information.
From here on, Loki discovered a new fact. Before, he only knew that TVA workers were recruited directly by the timekeepers. But according to Sylvie, the TVA workers are actually the same variant as Loki and Sylvie themselves. From here it began to be seen that TVA was hiding on Loki, and their talks had to stop due to the announcement that the evacuation plane was about to take off. They began to infiltrate the plane area, while the planet was already getting closer. In another 5 minutes, the plane will soon take off, but it can be seen that many people are not allowed to enter to board the plane. The planet was already very close and the two of them were finally hit by a meteor until they bounced back. The two are still trying to get inside the plane, and Loki uses his magic to protect Sylvie from the ruins of the building. The plane was already in front of their eyes, but it was a pity that a meteor destroyed it. Sylvie and Loki watched the incident very frustrated. And the story of this part is then finished. One question that arises after this episode 3, can they still survive the apocalypse that is already in sight, and how can they survive? The answer we will find in the next episode 4.